About a month ago, I decided to play The Expanse, which was the first Telltale game made since the company died in 2018. I wasn't sure what to expect, but I wanted to give it a chance, and found myself punished for doing so. Everything I loved about Telltale's games was absent from The Expanse. The game misuses a lot of resources to create wide open spaces with nothing in them, and this really frustrated me. It felt like such a waste of time, effort, and money. Also, the game crashed and pushed me back about half an hour in the second episode. I decided, no, I'm not going to replay the last half an hour of the game, and gave up on it entirely. I feel it's worth mentioning that in 2012, my save file for Season 1 of The Walking Dead was wiped a few days before Episode 5 was released. And because I loved the game so much, I replayed all 4 of the previous episodes to have my save file ready for the last episode. In comparison, I wasn't willing to replay half an hour of this game. I feel like that speaks volumes. As a palate cleanser, I decided to play The Wolf Among Us, as it's been 10 whole years since I played it. It was actually a lot better than I remember, and it made me very nostalgic for a time where I really look forward to Telltale's work. I mention all of this because this was one of the main reasons that I was excited for Nocturnals as a project. This game was made by YouTuber Maximizo, who I knew as Cutipus and some other names for a while, and I've been following his work since his Sims 1 All Deaths video uploaded about 9 years ago.
I heard about a newly discovered death involving a hamster squirrel kind of thing. I don't like squirrels. One time it crawled up my leg whilst I was asleep and began laying eggs in my pajamas.
Which is very uniquely funny, and I'd highly recommend it. He's uploaded a lot of videos over the years about the Telltale Walking Dead games, and he's clearly demonstrated his passion for the games is similar to mine, and was now making a spiritual successor that I felt personally looked very promising. I'd like to make a Nocturnals episode of Curiosity's Sake at some point, but those take time to make, and it's going to be on a back burner of some sort, so I decided to do a reactionary review, and then talk about it deeper at a later point. Nocturnals is a post-apocalyptic drama that explores the partnership, friendship, and possible romance of two young men who work together to escape a town and its numerous threats in order to find somewhere new. The game is visually 2D, but the environments are 3D, and I feel like this all blends really well together. The game's style looks unique and is all around pleasant to look at. It creates some nice atmospheres, and everything is well designed and tightly locked down, never feeling like there's anything pointless or out of place. It's simple but pleasant to look at. Unlike a Telltale game, this game performs really well, and there was little to no jank or bugs, which I was very appreciative of, as that almost feels like industry standard these days. The dialogue all aligns beautifully, which puts this above Dustborn, and there's no glaring issues with the gameplay. There are several points in the game that succeed well at being horror, such a character actually managing to startle me by suddenly appearing unexpectedly, and I absolutely adored that in the final act there's a scene very reminiscent of a quite intense scene from Jurassic Park. So the main meat and potatoes of a game like this is its story, which is the most important thing about it just in general. Is the story all around good, and do the decisions matter or have any impact on the player? The actual story is well composed, it has a tight plot, every character serves a purpose, and for the most part the dialogue serves the story and characterization well. I feel that the story is well composed, and there's some good character moments in it that I am very much appreciative of. Diego and Ted have quite a strong connection and some nice banter.
I thought it was a metaphor. No, I told you. I grew up in an abandoned zoo. Yeah, it still had meerkats and... Oh, and it had a gibbon named Lulu.
How on earth did a monkey survive all this time?
Well, I just slept in trees and ate bananas.
They feel quite human and are both believable characters. I do feel that the length of the game does kind of leave me wanting a bit more, as most of their relationship kind of happens during a 3-day time skip, and I can't help but feel that I would have maybe liked to see them bond naturally over a regular amount of time rather than just skipping 3 days of it. In comparison to The Walking Dead, Lee and Clementine are on screen together for the entirety of the first episode of Season 1 after they meet, with the exception of the hotel room, but it doesn't feel like you missed anything through their relationship. So by the end of it, it feels like the relationship has been developed over quite a bit of time, and you've witnessed the whole development. It also helps that in that game, you're able to talk to Clementine more and get to know her more, should you choose to. There are time skips in the series, but that's usually between episodes or over a couple of hours where not much of consequence would have happened. Whilst these characters do get to know each other a bit more during the time skip, we sadly don't get to know them, and there's seemingly a lot of information that we don't get because of this, or parts of the relationship that just sort of get glossed over, which would have been kinda nice to see unfold. The flaw that I feel a bit more bad for pointing out is the voice acting. I get the impression that all four of the performers in this game are somewhat lacking in experience, and it really comes across during the game's performances. I don't think the acting is bad for what it's worth, they convey the appropriate emotions, but I do feel like there's a lack of confidence whilst doing so, and this does undermine things somewhat. For example, Maggie here is yelling at Ted because he's running off with her only means of survival, and she sounds like this.
Open the door! Shit! Just give me the keys! You come into our home, you steal our things.
Yeah, she sounds less angry and desperate, and more like my year 1 teacher, slightly irked, reminding me that I need to sit on the carpet with the rest of the class for story time. There's at least 1 or 2 weak line reads for every character, I'd say. Now, don't get me wrong, this isn't a deal breaker, especially in a low budget game in which the developer likely needed to rely on friends or people that he found on the internet to give his characters a voice. And I've heard worse compromises than this, believe me.
You fucking asshole. You killed them.
They
Oops.
attacked me first.
Shut your mouth. What? Shit. Fucking homemade gun.
Shut your mouth, asshole.
But it is something really difficult to ignore or overlook, especially when it happens at a point where it should be a bit more dramatic, but it's just not. This can also be a product of inexperienced directing, so I don't feel like this is something to blame any one person for, and I feel like it's just something worth looking into for future projects. I wouldn't encourage anyone to give up over that, because honestly, everyone has to start somewhere, and it's not a bad starting point by any means, at least not as far as I'm concerned. I've heard way worse in AAA games that cost millions of dollars.
Please, help me. Anyone.
Yeah, could you do that again but good? As far as the decision making aspect goes, I do appreciate that decisions in this game do have some bite. For example, killing someone in this game does have earth-shattering consequences, and it does affect your relationship with Diego as he's disturbed at the fact that you've taken a life. Doing this does put you on a particular path in the game, affecting how the story works from that point onwards, which I do appreciate as its inspiration, The Walking Dead, often had instances where you could kill someone and nothing really came of it, or the same outcome would happen if you killed them or not. I do have to give this game a gold star for making something as important as taking a human life be, actually important. I do find that the choices that I made did get brought up in dialogue or through future events, and characters even weigh in and judge you based on the choices that you made and determine how they feel about you overall based on the particular ones you chose. The story develops very similarly regardless of choices, but it does affect outcomes and conversations, a lot like Telltale games. None of them specifically change the course of the story, or change the entire outcome of the story. Like, you don't go to a completely different location or change the path entirely, but I did appreciate that the differing playthroughs were different enough. You can tell the devs really had the Walking Dead series on their minds as they made this, as I noticed quite a few borrowed lines and minor homages.
Do you think things will ever be normal again? Just like the way they were before?
I don't think so, Clem. I think the best we can hope for is that we'll find a way to survive, to stay together, and to not let this change us. That's what's important.
I guess you're right.
Do you think things will ever go back to how they were? Like, before.
I don't think it can ever be the same.
Maybe you're right. I guess we have to make do with the new normal.
Yeah, with the Nocturnals dying out, maybe the new normal won't be so bad.
It does admittedly lift a little too much from these scenes, to the point where they feel more like imitation than reference. I have to admit, it did kind of take me out the game just a little bit. To conclude, Nocturnals is the best game to come out of this particular formula in a long time. It's reasonably priced at $6.99, and it does provide an hour of content, and it's replayable to the point that you can beat it several times and get different results and endings every time, assuming you pick different choices every time, of course. I've beaten this game twice at this point, and I do plan on playing it some more and hopefully find new avenues for the story to take me. As a first game from this particular developer and this particular team, I'd really recommend people give this one a chance who like this formula, and I really look forward to what they come up with next.
Professor Curious is okay.